Welcome to POSTCAST tonight. David Locke along with Ron Boone reuniting after the Jazz get thumped by the Toronto Raptors. The best in the East looked every bit that good tonight. They really put it on the Jazz. The Jazz were in this one for a while. It's really similar. Two storylines to me are very, very similar tonight. One is the best offensive teams in the league. The Jazz are not capable of handling right now. Tonight, the Toronto Raptors just broke every record the Dallas Mavericks already set as an opponent high against us. And they're just the best offensive teams. We don't have the answer. You have to be able to defend. Even when you defend them well, they know where to go the second and third and fourth options, and we don't know how to defend that yet.
And I like their pace. We talk so much about the pace of play here with the Jazz, and they have a pace, but it's not a pace of it's not as quick or it's not as quick as the Raptors. They run their fast break. They push the ball up the score, and they take a lot of shots. First open shot, they're going to take it, and you see why their offense is so efficient for them, because I think every player on this team likes the way they're playing right now, and they just score. I mean, they have a lot of guys that's capable of having a big night. I was looking at their stats. So many of those guys that on one given night, about 8 of them have scored 20 points or so. And then you look at the backcourt there tonight, and this is without DeRozan, who is their leading, probably considered to be their best player anyway. They had 73 points between those 3 guys, with Lou Williams and Vasquez, and then the 39 points there by Lowry.
It's an interesting route the Raptors took to get here. Talking to Coach Casey before the game. So when he took over the team, they did 85%. He said 80% of their practices were all defense. Everyone hated it because they were boring. And he was like, we're going to figure out how to play defense and get our skeleton defense. Our guys were all offensive players. We're going to play defense. Once we started playing defense, then I unleash them. Now I let them go. And what was interesting about tonight, he said, coming in, is we've gone too far the other way. We're going to get back and play defense. And they really defended quite well tonight against the Jazz.
Well, I thought the Jazz scored tonight, and at halftime, I was looking and said, "Boy, you look at the way the Jazz were at halftime. I would take those. What they have 50. How many points they scored at half? Almost. I don't have the box score here.
I do 53.
53 points, and the field goal percentage is about 49%, 48%, something like that. I take that on any given night, but not against this team, because this team offensively is just so explosive.
They were able to get a lot of 3-on-3, 2-on-2. They aren't always advantage breaks, but they were just early offense where you have more space on the floor. When you have 5-on-5, there's just not, even if you're running your stuff right, there's just not as much space. They were able to play in a lot more space than we do.
Yeah, and Vasquez is one of those high energy type players that stretches the floor and there's so many guys that can take a 3-point shot. It's just a good basketball team. I don't think you can't say anything bad about them. The Jazz tonight just didn't have it defensively, though they have not had it defensively a lot of teams. But
they might win the East.
As you mentioned, they could very well win the East. And I think we've seen them twice now. And I've watched a lot of the Eastern Conference teams play, and I think right now they might be playing as the best in the East right now.
So if you're the 1 seed in the East, I mean, Chicago is the other team, right?
Yes.
So there's 4 teams that are good in the East: Chicago, Toronto, Washington, and Cleveland, we assume, will be good. And actually, I watched Cleveland the other night. They're beginning to look pretty darn good. Like, particularly if you're down by 5 and you need a bunch of stops, you're not getting them. That's how they look right now. They haven't started defending yet, but their offense is clicking in. So can Toronto beat those teams?
Well, I think, David, I'd say yes. I would definitely say yes. I wouldn't bet against them. And I think that Toronto will be a team that those other 3 teams would definitely be afraid of and scared of, because I think right now they have size and they have an offense. Getting back to defense and being able to stop guys, stop other teams is something that they're gonna have to do. They have to play better defense, because you look at the Jazz shoot 48%, score 104 points.
8 of 28 from 3 is not
28.
I mean, that's good defense in this league.
Yeah.
And that's what defense in this league is. They defend that 3.
Yeah.
So Lowry goes bananas. Lou Williams, did they just get hot? I mean, at some point we're tipping our hat. Did you let them get enough rhythm, and that's the flaw defensively, or just really good players make some tough shots tonight?
I think really good players have just made some good shots. And Larry was hot, sure enough. You can't take that away from him, but he made those shots. And he's playing in rhythm. He's playing at his own pace. He's getting to where he wants to on the floor. And I think that's key. He's 6'1", but for some reason he looks bigger sometimes. He looks so much bigger than Trey. And the 203, 204 pounds, whatever he weighs, probably has a lot to do with that. But, since DeRozan's been out, he's taken over the offensive part of the ball game, and he's been doing it well.
Can we have a moment together, everybody? Can we just have a moment? Me and you and Ron?
Yeah.
It's very easy to be upset about the defense. But can we have a reality check? Rodney Hood, who's played 8 NBA games, was trying to guard Kyle Lowry tonight. The second choice was Trey Burke, who's not a particularly good defensive player, but is also in his second year in the league against a guy who's played now 9-10 years in the league. You don't get a lot of stop. You're not good defensively in these situations. Fourth youngest lineup, really second youngest lineup the Jazz have ever started in the history of the franchise. There are not good defensive teams with guys that are this young. They don't exist.
No, they really don't.
It's a process.
They really don't, and it is awfully tough to even the team defense that they're trying to play right now, and it's just tough. And as we mentioned the other night on the podcast, that the one thing that young players don't have is how to play defense when they get into this league, how physical it is, how crafty these guys are. And then you look at, David, the backcourt that the Jazz have ran up against here as of late. And they ran up across a buzzsaw here tonight. But every night the backcourt has been awesome there for the Jazz.
Orlando's not a very good defensive team.
Yeah.
You know why? Because they're playing Victor Oladipo and Vukovic, who's not very experienced, and Elfrid Payton, and we'll see how we do against them on Friday. They're not particularly good defense. And they've drafted every single one of their players who are defensive-minded.
Mm-hmm.
It's just hard to play defense when you're young.
And patience is something that, obviously we're going to have to wait on. And we talk about that at the beginning of the year. And it's amazing, quickly before we go to this, it's at the beginning of the year, everyone was talking about 25 wins and we're being patient and they're going to be doing this. But now here we are, 19 games into
on pace for 25 wins
into the season. And it's like we forgot about what we talked about at the beginning of the season. This team is a work in progress right now, and I hope we just don't forget about that.
4 times last year, the Jazz had opponents who shot 57 or higher. However, one reason we hired Quinn was to teach defense to our players. Why should or shouldn't Jazz fans be excited about what we have seen on the defensive end? Well, I mean, you shouldn't be excited about it. It hasn't been very good. So I would say, but I'm not sure. I think there's also probably a limit to how good this group, as it's built, currently can be, nor is this going to be the final group that ever pushes us forward, right? Yeah. Part of the progress is that people will change and things will change and players will develop and earn their positions or not earn their positions and will move forward. Right. I still think there's a lot of reasons. I think individually, there's a second-year player who played very little basketball, or let me rephrase that. He's played a lot of basketball, very little high-level basketball before he got here, and Rudy Gobert, who is 19 games into his second season in the NBA, who's going to be a defensive force in this league and going to be fabulous. That piece is there. There's a 19-year-old kid from Australia whose defensive skills with no acumen or no knowledge is pretty good.
Yeah. He might be one of the Jazz better on-ball defenders that they have right now at 19. So when he gets a little bit more experience, then you can imagine, what it's going to be like for him. This is an offensive league. Don't forget that.
Right. No, right.
And it's awfully tough to stop teams now, especially the way the game is called. But we just can't lose sight of this young basketball.
The other thing is a really good line to remember. You really can't know what a player is until he reaches base level or average level physical strength for that position. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Rudy's not there yet. Dante's not that. Rodney's not there yet. Trey's not there yet. Gordon's there. How's he look? Pretty good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Favors is at base level strength for the position. Pretty good. Yeah. Cantor is probably getting close to base level strength for his position. Okay, you can see what he can and can't do.
Yeah.
There's some things he can do. There's some things he can't do.
You talked about Gobert. Two things that they're going to have to work on him with is one is strength in his hands. You got to be able to catch the basketball and keep it.
Yep.
And then I think the lower part of his body. I mean, as tall as he is, and he plays long, especially he has those arms up in the air, but he gets moved around with the lower part of his body because he's just not strong there. Maybe his base is not wide enough, or he's playing straight up. For whatever reason, that has to improve for him to keep him being pushed around down in the paint.
And the next thing he needs to do is he needs to go spend hours watching film, and the Jazz have to support him in this. Tyson Chandler and Brandon Wright of Dallas.
Great
Neither
examples.
of them have any offensive moves, but both of them are big and long enough that when they go to the rim, they're a threat, and they bring the defense with them. And Rudy's going to have to learn, and the coaching staff's going to have to implement some of Dallas' sets, which we already have because we admire those sets. And we don't have Dirk, so our sets don't work quite as well as they do with Dirk.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what those guys are able to do. How do you run the break and bring defense? How do you flatten it out? Those kind of things. But, again, we're so baby-stepping all of this, and I got it. Doesn't feel good to be down 17 every night. We've been down 17 for what, 7 straight nights?
Yeah. And got back within 9, I think.
Never got closer to 9.
On 9 different occasions.
Yeah.
So
alternate possessions there for a while.
amazing.
So, all right. That's all right. It's okay.
We'll be here.
We'll be here, and it's okay. It's okay. No, really, see ya. It's okay.